Again on BBC Radio Norfolk. To the stage now, and a very unusual theatre company based in Norwich called Curious Directive. They create productions that fuse theatre and science and virtual reality, which is topics that you don't often hear in the same sentence, really. Artistic director Jack Lowe is in this studio with me tonight to tell me all about it. Hello, Jack.
Hello.
Lovely to meet you. I think we should start with you, Jack, because it's an amazing thing that you're doing. But where has it all come from? Have you always loved theatre and performance?
Yeah, I mean, even back as a 7-year-old, me and my mum were in an amateur dramatics company, and we toured around Norfolk. And I was always sort of cast as the kid that was either, thrown around the stage or murdered or something like that, because it was all classic plays back then.
Wow.
So even though these days I don't at all make plays that relate to the classics, all of our plays are new, but I started off back in the day touring around Norfolk in that way. Yeah.
Amazing. Was your mum a mega sort of play buff then? Did she love
Yeah, she trained at Rose Bruford, which is a drama school that at the time was actually taught by Rose Bruford. So often, obviously, drama schools are named after people, and the eponymous Rose Bruford taught her.
Wow.
Yeah, and so she was a professional actor for the best part of 15 years.
Incredible.
And then moved on to other things, but always retained that interest in theatre, yeah.
Which rubbed off on you, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was, if I'm honest. I was more interested in sport and other stuff, and I was interested in the mucking in part of it as much as being on stage, because I didn't really have lines or anything, but I quite enjoyed... Yeah, because you're outside in Norfolk countryside air at night time, and you meet these weird people who, you look back and go, oh, they were just drinking after the show. That's why they were weird. That's what that was.
It's very funny, that child perspective, isn't
it?
When
for sure.
You can't marry those two bits together.
Yeah.
And I guess as well, if you didn't have lines and you were, often not on stage, do you get to kind of see the technicals? Yeah,
definitely got to understand that part of being involved in theatre at that end of things is about mucking in. I mean, professionally now, I still muck in. I see my role as artistic director. It's not a kind of sat on a plinth somewhere. I was saying to your colleague today, of all days, was really varied, do a million different things. And I guess it's like anything, if you're introduced to that approach to life, then that's how you see it. And very lucky in that way.
So you have gone from being a kind of 7-year-old sharing the stage with your mum. What happened when you were at high school and teenage? What was happening then?
Yeah, well, I did plays, and I enjoyed that a lot. I directed my first play when I was 16, a play called Hannah and Hannah, which was a play set in Margate, about a kid who had arrived from Eastern Europe with the name Hannah, and another kid from Margate, grew up in Margate, called Hannah.
Okay.
Very simple premise, but it was about it was about a tolerance of the movement of people, really, and loved that. And then moved on. Yeah.
When you directed it, where were you directing it? What was
at school? Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, and did all the set design and bought planks of wood to do the thing, and really sort of got my first experience of not being on stage, and I guess that feeling of being able to tell stories from a different side was exciting. And then I went to uni, like a lot of people do, and I went to study French and politics, not drama at all.
Yeah.
Which was an interesting move.
With Hannah and Hannah, were you told to be the director, or was it something that you knew you wanted to do?
I think I knew I wanted to do it. Yeah. I think I was interested in how someone collaborates with actors. I think I was interested in storytelling in a kind of in a more three-dimensional kind of way.
Yeah.
I think I was interested in, maybe I was interested in just being the boss. I don't know. I was interested in just being really bossy.
Having that chair.
Yeah. And, having a chair. No. Yeah.
So you didn't do theatre at uni then. What was your uni experience like? And was theatre going alongside it at the time, or?
Yeah, I mean, so I went to Warwick Uni and studying French and politics, and all my mates were studying theatre and performance there.
Yeah.
And
Why didn't you choose that? What was the?
Because I didn't want to study drama.
Right.
I didn't want to academically study something that I felt was so not academic.
Yeah.
I wanted to I thought about maybe trying to go to drama school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to, and then my family, I guess a lot of people make decisions. You have to make decisions so young, don't you? They're all like, go and study languages. And I was like, great, all right, brilliant. Because I was all right at it.
Yeah.
And I got to Warwick, and because the theatre and performance study course still actually is kind of world leading, I met a lot of people who had been brave enough to choose to do that.
Yeah.
And they became all my mates. And so we did drama at uni like a lot of people do, and it wasn't you really wouldn't see Shakespeare in the drama. You wouldn't see any Shakespeare or Chekhov or Ibsen or anything. You would see new plays.
Yeah.
You're more likely to be riffing off something, Yoko Ono was doing in the 60s as a piece of performance art mixed up with like some political rally than see a version of Romeo and Juliet.
Wow, that's really exciting.
It was really exciting. Yeah, so I sort of bypassed a lot of what people think of being drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You finish uni then. You've got your degree, I assume, anyway, and then you've and you've also got that amazing experience with your friends that you've made and the theatre side of things. What do you go on to do then?
So we started Curious Directive in my final year of uni.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we
and who's we? Was that your friends from Warwick?
Yeah. So I was a little bit older because I did 4 years. So I was away for a year in France, in Paris, and I came back and everyone had left, which was a bit weird. Yeah. So I directed a show that was based upon the writings of Oliver Sacks. He wrote a number of amazing books, storytelling books about extraordinary things that happen to the human brain, as well as loads of really dry case studies that we discovered in the library. And we gave that shape and form and submitted that to a thing called the National Student Drama Festival, which is still going now, really strong. And that was our first show, and it went to Scarborough.
Okay.
It's not in Scarborough now. I think it's in Leicester now. And did this play, and we suddenly met loads of other people our age who also love drama at loads of high schools and unis, and 12 shows were selected, and we all saw each other's stuff.
Wow.
And that's like the best thing.
Yeah.
It's like anything, if you work in art, if you see other people who love it as well, and you're like, oh, right, we're quite similar.
Yeah.
And then that gives you just confidence. It gives you confidence that what you're doing is... And then, of course, there's the huge, terrifying fear of that's not a job.
Yes.
That's not a job.
Especially when you have people breathing down your neck saying that to you.
Definitely.
After uni.
Yeah, get a job. And I was like, I don't want a job.
Yeah. This could be a job.
Yeah, it could be a job.
Yeah.
I had to work quite hard to get there, but yeah.
That's really brave. I think we'll have a little musical interlude because I want to come on to... It sounds like that's the kind of start of Curious Directive.
Yeah.
And I want to talk more about what Curious Directive is and what sets it apart from other companies.
Okay.
So we'll come on to that in a second. We'll have a listen to Lizzo first. BBC Radio Norfolk, Sophie Little with you till 10. And in the studio with me is the artistic director of Curious Directive, Jack Lowe. We've just been talking about your childhood, your teenage years, your uni life, everything in your life that's encompassed theatre up to that point. And where we left off was the start of Curious Directive, really. You said you'd started it in your last year of uni and spoke a little bit about the beginnings of that. What were the early years of that like, and what else was going on in your life?
Yeah, so I finished French and politics at Warwick and felt really out of place wanting to work in theatre. So I applied for an MFA, a Master in Fine Arts in Theatre Directing.
Okay.
Which was at Birkbeck in London, and that course is still going. It's a 2-year course, so that people can work alongside it, which is really great.
Yeah.
As in, it's a kind of part-time 2-year course.
Yeah.
But everyone's doing that, and so I learned on that about maybe more the traditional side of theatre directing, but alongside that, as well as working, as well as other things, I was also running Curious Directive, and we then did the next show, as you do.
Yeah.
And that went up to the Edinburgh Festival, as a lot of people do. But we were really lucky because with that show we won a Fringe First, which is kind of like, it's a really, basically 18 of the shows that are in Edinburgh are given, so 6 generally each week, and there's sort of 2,000 plays.
Wow.
So if you win one, it's sort of a really big hallmark on the work. And we were
deal.
like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
I remember where I was on with now obviously my really long-term friends. I remember where you remember where you are when you get one of those awards. So that happened, and
where were you?
So I was outside a theatre called the Bedlam,
Okay.
which is the University of Edinburgh's theatre. And I was walking along with a guy called Gareth Taylor, who now is the head of movement at Alra Drama School.
Wow.
And an actor called Will Cardozo, who is now in like loads of weird Marvel films.
Wow.
And yeah, we were walking along, and Gareth knew what it was because he's a bit older than me, but I didn't know what it was really. Yeah, and then, as often happens with emerging theatre companies, lots of offers came in, and I got an amazing producer, and we started making more plays. And that show was about a skiing accident in northern Norway.
Okay.
And then the show after it was about social media and ant colonies, and how ants behave in the way that social media behaves. This was back in 2012. Now that would be a bit twee, but back then we were like, what is so, like, how do we connect it? What is social media?
Yeah.
And we just studied ant colonies.
Amazing.
Yeah, and took another, and every show is about science, so it's always a bit like that.
This is what I want to ask about. I mean, why? Why is it? Where's the science bit come from? You studied politics and French.
Yeah.
You are massively into theatre. You set up Curious Directive. Where's the science bit coming from, and why is it important?
I guess the first show was about neuroscience, and that the book, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, was given to me by my girlfriend at the time, and that show was so overwhelmingly positive as an experience. And I remember a theatre maker called Bertrand Lescar, who is an amazing theatre maker in his own right now. He said, he's French. He was like, why don't you just make a trilogy? And I was like, oh yeah, okay. And so we made 3 plays, and then by that point it was like, oh, this is what we do now.
Science.
Yeah, this is what we do, and we look for intriguing and fascinating and beguiling and scary and amazing areas of science, I suppose, and then convert it into some form of theatre performance. Yeah.
What's the reaction been from that? Are there other people that have done that before or doing that? And what were the reactions from people from a science background and also from your kind of peers in theatre?
Well, I guess when you first start a theatre company, you're just thinking about what you're doing. And I guess over the last 10 years, it's been revealed to me that, back in the 90s, there was a company that did that a lot, but that was mostly about touring into schools, for example, which isn't what we do.
Yeah.
And then you realise, a playwright wrote, Michael Frayn wrote an amazing play about the quantum world called Copenhagen, about when they all met in Copenhagen. You go, fair enough, but that's not what we do.
Yeah.
And you kind of realise that a lot of kind of the theatre world has always looked to science as a place of wonder and curiosity and genuine fascination with like what makes people tick. And there were other theatre companies that I became aware of that were doing bits and pieces and then focusing quite a lot on it and then moving off to something else. And there's probably more theatre companies I don't know about.
Yeah.
But I always say that certainly playwrights, it feels like, who their job is that they obviously create an entire universe in their play. At some point during their artistic development will write a play about science.
Yeah.
Because you can't, I mean, you can, but you can not do it, but you can't not in a way.
Yeah.
It's going to pique your imagination in some way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's it's definitely something I find incredibly unique with what you do at Curious Directive. And tell me a little bit about how it grew and the premises that you now occupy in Norfolk. When did that come into it?
Yeah, so we first received funding from Arts Council England in 2011, which is quite a long time ago. And that was because I spoke to the Arts Council England have these amazing group of people called relationship managers, and that's basically the relationship between the Arts Council and artists, which immediately meant, that's not intimidating. And Claudia West, who is still at the Arts Council, I spoke to her on the phone and said, I got this idea for this play. And she was like, great, it sounds amazing, write it down.
Yeah.
And that confidence to apply to the Arts Council cascaded, and then 15 Arts Council grants later, through the years, we became an Arts Council England national portfolio organisation, which means that they basically fund us solidly for 4 years and will trust us to deliver the plays that we said we would deliver, alongside a load of other stuff, obviously, because as you get older, you have to do other stuff.
Yeah.
But that kind of, as one part of how we fund how we do what we do, basically sort of just meant that the dreaming could carry on.
Yeah.
So you could go, actually, we can make a play about quantum biology. We can make a play about coral reefs.
Yeah.
Etc.
And you've got that security as well. It's not one project to the next. It's a rolling project.
And it's very hard to become one of those organisations for good reason. And I think that it definitely got to a time where I was like, right, well, I think this is not the only way, but one of the only ways I can think of that we can carry on doing this. Tell
me about the building that you're in.
The church.
Yeah.
So Norwich and our churches. So it's a medieval church dating back to about 1446. And the amazing thing about our church is that in the 70s, we think, the city council, along with the scouts, divided the church up. And now we're in there and we have the loft, which is a rehearsal space, the nave, which is a creative co-working space open to anyone at $68.50 a month to come and have a desk and do what they do. Yeah, but you have to be an individual. So you have to identify as an individual running ideally an arts or a charitable company.
Okay.
And then we have the chancel, which is a kind of workshop type space. And with the city council, they've helped us be in there to do a bit more than I say just doing our plays, but a bit more than producing our plays and touring them.
I bet you've met some people through that as well.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, the number of people who turn up from America being like, hi, my ancestor is related to the guy who built this church. And you're like, great, it's 5:45 on a Friday. And you're like, cool, well, I'll show you around then. An hour later. Yeah, that all the way to people who come and look around and they go, I remember this is where I got my Scouts uniform. And
oh, wow.
It's really nice. Yeah, it's great. And because that's, as a theatre company, you want to be known for your work, but, you need more than that. So, it's good. It's challenging.
Yeah.
Because it's a grade 1 listed building. And freezing.
I can imagine freezing. Yeah, absolutely. Do you have to have little heaters blowing all the time? Or?
Everyone who works in the environmental field needs to shut their ears now.
Okay.
Yeah. We're trying to do something about it, but yeah.
I've been to a few different churches that are studios in Norwich, and I know that's a running theme.
But it's wicked though, isn't it, how these churches once were centres and pillars of communities, and now they are genuinely becoming that again.
Yeah, exactly.
Because going and participating in and seeing theatre is a communal practice. It's you're breathing the same air in that room, you are watching the same thing, you're reacting to the same thing, and it's storytelling, which is basically what Christianity's founded on.
Yeah.
The best storytellers, isn't it? He was pretty good at it.
Yeah.
The old JC. He was he was good at it.
There's a whole book.
There's a big one. There's two.
So we've kind of spoken about the physical space that you guys occupy.
Yeah.
What are you doing these days with Curious Directive? What have you got coming up?
So we are touring a show called Frogman, which is a VR theatre hybrid. It's audiences of 60 sit in the round, so they sit in a circle, and they watch a live interview of a coral reef scientist in the present day. And she's told that her father is charged with the murder of a teenager back in the 90s. And then the audience put on headsets and they go back in time and see in VR 1995 her as an 11-year-old. They see coral reef dives and stuff.
Wow.
So that's been touring. We just got back from South Africa.
Wow.
From the National Arts Festival in South Africa.
Yeah.
And that's going out to Russia soon. And that's been around the world, really.
Has it been in England?
It has. Yeah.
So we've missed our opportunity.
We think it may come back. Actually, we are. If there's any, this is great. Yeah, we can do this.
What?
If there are any school head teachers, secondary schools who want a piece of innovative theatre for their students for free, we're trying to reach out to teachers and we're trying to do a schools week spring next year. So yeah, genuinely, if anyone wants their students, and it doesn't have to be just drama students, it's particularly actually it's science students and art students and English students. So yeah, we're trying to kind of do that.
What opportunity!
Hope so.
So Curious Directive is what you need to look for online. CuriousDirective.com, and you can contact you through that.
Yeah, if there are, and then we are just about to go back into rehearsals for Gastronomic.
Yes. Now let's talk about this because it's something that's happened before in Norwich, isn't it? Tell us about this.
So this
is incredible.
This play it's called Gastronomic, and it's a 5-course tasting menu set on board an Airbus A380.
And this is really silly. I just need to break this down. It is literally a 5-course meal. You're not watching a 5-course meal. You're actually consuming.
You are
a 5-course meal. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So we collaborated with Richard at Benedict's, and Richard at the Assembly House, and Sean at Shiki, and Vijay at Namaste Village, and we created this bespoke 5-course tasting menu and devised it. So we're devising theatre company in 49 Elm Hill, and the audience sit around a ginormous conveyor belt, and in the middle, so you all have your own place setting. In the middle is a cross section of I guess a sort of kitchen on an airplane. And you have wireless headphones, and you follow a story of 3 chefs on a flight coming into Heathrow. And there's cuts away to 2 border control officers. And basically, the play is looking at how ingredients may feel like they're British, and dishes may sound like they're British, but the origins of where those foods come from, in fact, couldn't be less British.
Wow.
So fish and chips is a Jewish dish from Eastern Europe, and the Romans bought almonds that go into Bakewell tarts, and we kind of break down that, and that's what the menu is. So it's sort of tasty and fun because the border control officers are morons. They're proper morons. And no offence to anyone who is a border control officer, but the things I've heard of border control, you know, when you're putting your stuff through and you hear they're just chatting absolute rubbish. And we've picked up on that as a bit of a double act.
Okay.
So we did it at Norwich Theatre Hall over 3 weeks, and it was commissioned by Shoreditch Town Hall in London as well as the National Theatre, and it's moving to London this autumn.
Amazing.
So that's going to be really cool, and it's only $27.50 a ticket.
That's
which,
brilliant.
If there's ever an argument for subsidy for art, that's a good one. Yeah. So we work really hard to make sure tickets are cheap, so it's not just £70 a ticket or whatever.
I don't want to, but I want to be impartial here. But look, I don't know if you could actually physically get a 5-course meal for £27 in many places.
I know. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's so much pressure on artists and theatre companies to be more commercial about what they do, but there's so much pressure to get more people into the theatre, and the artists are kind of stuck in the middle sometimes. But my stance on it is that I want people to come thinking it's going to be a play, and then be blown away by the food. And it's big challenges not being those restaurants are obviously not in London. So we've modelled it in a really interesting way. We're working with a training college in East London for kids who've had a really tough start in life, and they're learning to get off the streets by learning to cook.
Wow.
As well as one professional chef who has the task of of corralling all these guys who are like amazing. But
wow.
Yeah, so you have to, as a touring theatre company, you kind of have to remodel what you do according to what's appropriate. Yeah.
I mean, your job just sounds incredible, Jack. It sounds so varied and interesting. No wonder you're such a chipper, happy chap. Any big plans for the future beyond this year?
Yeah, I mean, we always making new plays. We're making a play. I can't say the name. I can say the names of a couple of the partners with Warwick Arts Centre and Theatre Hall, Portsmouth, and then another big London partner about cave paintings.
Cave paintings.
Yeah, and about 40,000-year-old paintings.
Okay.
And it's going to be set in a primary school, and we'll be bringing it to Norwich autumn next year. So that'll be good. And then at home in our base, we are trying to do some good stuff for just the fabric of the building. We're trying to kind of make it more environmentally friendly, and we are making it a bit more accessible. And we're trying to buy an electric van to tour with. Wow. To be greener with how we tour. So my job sounds like it's wildly creative all the time, but I have to wear two quite solid hats. Yeah. And the other solid hat is about that kind of stuff. Yeah. To keep it being possible to make such wildly crazy work.
Well, both sides of it sound interesting, and thank you so much for coming in tonight and telling us all about it. So curiousdirective.com is where you can go to have a look at basically everything we've spoken about, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Will you come back in at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. That would be nice.
Great.
Because you're really interesting and we like you.
Lovely.
And I'm sure we have many more things that we can cover topic-wise. Thank you so much, Jack Lowe. We'll catch up with you soon.